Chapter 1. The story takes place in Scottsdale, Arizona. Genevieve Walker is 26. Her wealthy aunt and uncle, Melinda and Stephen Teal, took on the roles of her guardians when she was at the vulnerable age of 11. When Genevieve's father, Zephyrin, died while serving in the Vietnam War, and her mother, Lieve, committed suicide days later. Genevieve has unresolved guilt, regret, and anger over that time in her life. However, her emotions of the past stay buried, like her parents. Genevieve is the wife of Theodore, Teddy, Walker. Teddy grew up in northern England, Bamborough, and speaks with a Geordie accent resembling that of a Scotsman. It was while 18-year-old Genevieve and her family were on an extended vacation in Bamborough, she met Teddy. The young Englishman was a porter at Wainsworth Estate, the upscale hotel where Genevieve was staying. Drawn to each other at first sight, they fell in love and became engaged the night before Genevieve's vacation ended. They are parents to Ella, 7, and Brock, who just turned 1. They also just acquired a new family member, a youngster named Casey, their floppy-eared bunny. The charming Mrs. Walker also happens to be a psychic empath. In essence, she has the ability to feel someone's emotions by touching them. Yet, beyond that, as she touches a person who is unconscious and unable to speak, Genevieve can communicate with their spirit. Communicating, in her case, doesn't mean speaking, however. When Mrs. Walker poses questions in her thoughts, the unconscious person's spirit answers not with words, but emotions. Genevieve's final superpower is her visionary dreams. In them, she becomes the victim, often revealing a vital element to the mysterious case at hand. Enter Detective Brunner Chao. Brunner learned of Genevieve's unique talents a year ago. Always looking for a better and quicker way to move a crime mystery along when the victim was incapacitated, the out-of-the-box thinker proposed a partnership with Genevieve, which she accepted. Happily addicted to coffee, Brunner is a pragmatic officer that projects a hard shell, but Genevieve has come to realize he's a softie in many ways. Now the bantering duo work cases together when a crime victim is unconscious, and Genevieve is called to help Brunner in ways only she can. Genevieve tossed in her sleep as her heart raced. In a visionary dream, she was running through thick brush. The crescent moon, along with its shimmer upon the lake 50 feet away, produced enough illumination to guide the anxious dreamer as she compelled herself forward. Panting, Genevieve couldn't tell if she was running from or toward something. As she moved, everything appeared blurry and out of focus. Her emotions, however, were unimpaired. She was emotionally devastated, mourning a love she could never have. The wretched feelings gripping Genevieve's chest were those she'd feel if her husband, Teddy, was lost to her. As her pace quickened, she saw a clearing ahead and a cabin with its lights on. Running with abandon, Genevieve suddenly felt dread roar through her body. Then she sensed the reason. She was being chased, and it didn't feel like who was chasing her, more like what was chasing her. Just as she reached the gravel driveway near the cabin, things started to fade from view. Dizziness overcame her. Falling onto the rocky dirt, Genevieve looked toward the cabin.
Hudson,
Genevieve whispered in her sleep as wistful emotions overwhelmed her. Feeling her body moving, Genevieve opened her moist eyes and saw Teddy propped on one elbow, moving her arm back and forth with his free hand.
I couldn't let the dream continue, love. It's awful enough you have to endure these troubling emotions during the day. Nothing should make you feel that way while you're sleeping.
Genevieve wiped her eyes as she tried to let the potent emotions fade. Clearing her throat, she murmured,
Brunner called just before we headed to bed. He said there was a woman admitted to the hospital yesterday. She was found hallucinating, wandering around a strip mall. By the time the ambulance and police got there, she had collapsed. Now she's in a coma. I think I may have had a dream of her tonight. I'll know for sure once I get all the information from Brunner. In the dream, she was running, desperate to reach someone she loved. I felt her heartache and knew I'd feel the same way if I lost you.
Teddy moved closer until Genevieve could see his crystal blue eyes as the moonlight peeked through the curtains.
I'll do my best to never let that happen.
Genevieve nodded, but the emotion she felt from the mystery woman still felt like it could. Teddy put his arms around Genevieve so she could feel his protective love. She knew their relationship was safe, but couldn't let the feelings fade easily. Teddy knew there was nothing he could do but hold her until the dream's grasp abated. Feeling more herself after a minute, Genevieve turned her head upward and regarded her husband. She then held a long kiss before whispering,
I'm going downstairs to write the dream in my journal.
Wrapping a robe around her, Genevieve picked up the thick, worn leather book, left the room, and walked downstairs to write the nightmare down while the emotional impact was still real, raw, and powerful. The journaling practice was heading into its 8th year, and the stranger, the dream, the more likely the possibility it was significant, showing her something she needed to know. But often, it was unclear if the dream was about the past, present, or future. In this case, Genevieve felt pretty confident it was from whatever the woman in the hospital had already experienced. Once the difficult recounting was on paper, Genevieve closed the journal. Hearing some noise, she headed to the laundry room to check on the newest family member, a floppy-eared bunny named Casey. When she turned the light on, the small gray and white fluff ball hopped to the edge of the cage and wiggled his nose at her. Picking him up, she rubbed his soft fur against her face as his delicate paws wiggled anxiously in her hands.
Okay, little guy, okay.
Putting him down, Genevieve let him hop out of the laundry room and into the kitchen, sniffing and eating crumbs that hadn't been swept up after dinner. Within a few minutes, she put him back with a kiss on the head. After returning upstairs, Genevieve peeked inside Ella's room as her 7-year-old slept. A rotating lampshade on the nightstand was diligently displaying luminous stars that circled repeatedly around the room. Reaching the next room, Genevieve walked up to the crib where her 1-year-old son, Brock, was sound asleep. While brushing her finger along his cheek, a smile appeared on his face as he continued his slumber. Taking a deep breath of contentment, Genevieve felt fine again. In truth, her life couldn't be happier. Pulling a light cotton blanket over her toddler, the young mother returned to her room. Teddy had fallen back into a deep sleep. Climbing back into bed, Genevieve let her husband's warmth and tranquilizing emotions move through her, lulling her back to sleep.